Okay, I'll be moving this around to different locations to change the scenery, but I'm going to try not to say anything for a while because it's a test to not talk, because I talk a lot. Um, and I'm going to try not to like bust out dancing or anything. I'm not going to play any instruments because this is a space to ask me questions because I do volunteer work in hospice and also work with people that have mental illness, what have you. And people a lot of times feel uncomfortable asking questions. See, I'm already talking too much, but there's a little space down there. You can ask a question. I can also go to a different room and answer it, like in a meeting room or something like that. Or here, my voice projects a lot, so I'm trying to maintain a calm atmosphere right now because I'm like wide awake right now. And so I'm trying to work on silence and only speaking when necessary. But I already want to read some Steiner stuff. So there's some great passages in here about. Sorry, I can't. How do you turn this way? Rosicrucian initiation. So, and that doesn't mean anything. That's just different forms of what Steiner was talking about in the early 20s, which was modern forms of initiation, meaning not scary pyramid initiation. Like no one goes into a comatose state for like 3 days and has a priestess standing over them in primordial mound. Nobody does that anymore. Hold on just one second. There's modern variations of this, and Steiner knew that back in the 20s. And I argue that there's an easier access to tapping into spiritual archetypes. This is basic stuff. This is mystery teachers, mystery student. To become a teacher, you have to go through a form of initiation, which requires some scary stuff. But you could be a student at different levels of that don't require any of that. So what's happening here is I'm going to sit here and read. And if you want to ask me a question about hospice, depression, mental health, if you're beginning to have super sensible phenomenon happen to you and you don't feel comfortable talking about it, when I know what it's like. And then if you try to bring it up with somebody, they start treating you differently, right? So as we sit in a very hot spot, again, you can tap into this energy and maybe even experience some kind of healing, knowing that you're tapping in to a grid worker who's here to answer questions. So I'm in volunteer mode tonight. I'm going to be quiet for a while. This one wants to, you know, ask some questions. We can get that going. I'm probably going to do something to try to entertain. Like I might go outside by a bonfire. I don't know. So, oh, here we go. Come on. 1924. Here we go. Yeah, man, I really appreciate there, Mr. Philip. I do recognize your. I do recognize your name, and there's a reason why you've been tuning into this. There's more than one way to watch something. You don't have to have a song and dance. I could do a dance. I could wear a sizzle jacket. But something that's really important is understanding the importance of a hotspot and the healing properties. Not just a hotspot, but connecting with like-minded people. Like when you have someone that has went through a type of initiation and they have their spirit, it's called spirit organ. I mean, proboscis. I wish there was better names, but they give off a certain access to, and when we say energy, this is just a lack of a term. We're talking about a non-local spirit stream that's been compromised. And that's why there's teachers and students that sit in activated areas and have to keep them activated. But one of the amazing things you can do with non-locality, okay, and let me remind you what I mean by non-locality. For example, like I went outside after Dave's passing, like Dave Wilcox, and when he passed, and I instantly received a uh, light phenomenon, like instantly. Like when I, I went out to a certain location, turned left, and right away something happened. Like it's right there, and that's because I understand that there's higher density phenomenon going on in my mind, and when you allow that access, and you can sort of like abandon that free will, it's a major step towards embracing ascension abilities and engaging as a following a mystery student path. And so what I mean by non-locality is tuning into a stream with someone who's in an active area, who's also active. You can just tap in instantaneously and non-locally to that healing energy. And so you might be able to just receive some type of healing just by sitting here. You know, I mean, you don't even have to be watching it, you just have it playing. So let's see here, before I be quiet, this is a really interesting passage here from 1924. This is Rudolf Steiner. It says, "We have to remember that the actual mysteries of ancient times were of such a nature and character that in the mystery centers, an actual meeting with the gods could take place." In a mystery center. What's this? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And that's it, man. That's another thing too, is you have to have the courage to realize that sitting in a space with one or two people, is okay. It's actually a filtering mechanism. I recognize you. I've seen you before on something, either Dave's show or maybe when I used to post videos, supernatural videos, which I don't really do that anymore. I think it's kind of dangerous because then it could influence people to take images and hotspots, which could then potentially hurt them because you have military flying over and they shoot you with stuff. It's just a fact. It's not pretty. It's not something you want to promote. But yeah, thank you for being here, man. And so if you're one of like 4 people stumbling in here, well, I got nothing to sell, man. I'm a hospice volunteer who does free medium work. So there's like a type of alternative medicinal spiritual activity going on here, and you can filter out all of that mess that you see in like pop culture streams. I'm telling you, more you believe. What was I saying here? So yeah, this is like this 1924. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, so he's talking about how we have to remember that the actual mysteries of ancient times were of such a nature and character that in the mystery centers, an actual meeting with the gods could take place. This is normal. Okay, this is normal, like when you don't have a shroud over your consciousness. You can go to centers for healing. And you would walk down the street, go into a building, there'd be a person there, and they would manipulate the light of your body and heal you naturally. Oh, just one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, and that's it. This is a great example, man. This is amazing. I mean, one out of uh, 10,000 people. I don't know the exact math here, but right now in the state we're in, it's going to be one or two people that gravitate. And I want to be careful what I say because I don't want to say the real teachers because um, that's a complex topic. But you can understand already that there's a an attraction to a certain type of energy, and my relation with the Dave show, how sometimes I would make little commentary, was to try to track one or two people. And the math is pretty complex. Like I sometimes I think it's like 1 out of 10,000 that they'll actually get benefit from. I don't know, but hold on a second here. Yeah, so there's yeah, and Dave really like he led me to take that step towards actually entering into a hospice facility. Now I've had the feeling after having light phenomenon contact, which is common with NDEs, of doing that. And I actually had thought about doing missionary work after my first spiritual sort of awakening 10 years prior to that. Fell back into pessimism and kind of lost my way, but now it's permanent. And Dave, his Wanderer material, it's really important. Um, and me reaching out to Dave, actually, it's kind of an interesting story. Like I had reached out to Dr. Lynn Kaitai, which is one of the 5 people that I was led to, like in a trance-like kind of mode after I went to an extreme, what I call extreme holographic mode within a hotspot. There's different variations. There's one where you just go somewhere else, and it's hazy at the beginning and it's hazy at the end. And just imagine this. And this is what I want his fans to know. Like I walked in just kind of like all good, started ordering books. One of them was Dave. I have no idea who this person was. Had no interest in anything supernatural, you know. And I'm ordering Dave Wilcox. Never watched Ancient Aliens. Never seen Gaia. Okay. Dr. Lynn Kaitai, who's associated with the Phoenix Lights. Again, peaceful light phenomenon. Lights that were suspended above Phoenix, not moving, just suspended, and people started receiving healing and feelings of community and family from looking at the lights. Okay. And then Rupert Sheldrake. And so Dr. Lynn actually contacted her via email. She called me. Okay. Again, people connected, synchronicities, people that just feel like they're supposed to talk to somebody. And she just told me that she just had this. I should be name dropping, but this isn't we don't have much people watching here. And she talked to me for an hour. Okay, this is like Dr. Lynn who wrote the book on the Phoenix Lights. And she continued to talk to me. She initially thought I was going through trauma from having a supernatural experience. And the significance of her is she understands this angelic connection here. And she understands this whole UFO things, like really angelic. And that's what the regular people are supposed to be doing, is dealing with that element. And so she talked to me, and she was also in the movie Raising Arizona, by the way. Played Florence, Arizona, and spoke to me for an hour. She still practices as a. She's still working. So that, to give me that much time, I was expecting an invoice or something. And as I was talking to her through email correspondence, I brought up Dave because because after reading his books back to back, I saw that he had that connection, but I needed someone that went a little bit further out. And I saw how far out Dave could go, and she couldn't go that far, And she's like, this guy's impossible to get a hold of. Oh, I'm sorry here. Okay. Yeah, man, this is great. Yeah, I really like this feedback. I really appreciate that. Um, but this thing about being drawn to people, this has been happening to me, and this thing, Dr. Lynn, being one of the first people that I was able to talk to, I did bring up Dave because I noticed as I'm reading these five authors. One was Freddie Silva, maybe it was more like six, Rupert Sheldrake. I was starting to find. I mean, I was reading and reading and reading and reading. Starting to calibrate who I'm supposed to contact. Because then again, Dr. Lynn at that time, she was very, she had a lot going on, and she's not going to be like traveling around. And she goes, Dave is like impossible to get a hold of. Okay. She's like, I've interviewed Dr. Greer, and I don't agree with C5 contact. Don't get me started on that. And then she's like, I have. She recently interviewed like Kurt Russell and stuff like that, so she's legitimate. She's like, you can't get hold of Dave. You may want to try Twitter or something like that. And so I'm going. I just knew right away. I'm like, wow, this is going to be impossible. So I tuned into YouTube and realized right at the same time he's like starting up his show again. I know he had other things that were live streams. We're talking about the regular show, and I tried to reach out to him, and I was failing. I would say certain things on the show that I realized we had similarities with, like certain music, and I would get him to sing things like Moody Blues. But I was getting nowhere with trying to contact him via like super chats, which felt stupid. And so then he put like his address up there. So I started like sending him letters and certain things, no response. And I expected this because now I have people who are totally legitimate in his field telling me you can't get a hold of this guy. My sister lives an hour away from him, so I'm starting to think, oh, maybe, and I don't know, maybe she can help somehow. And the reason why I kept pursuing him is because I went out and basically asked, like, this thing that I can do. I don't know why I've been chosen for this, but I can do something where I can communicate instantaneously. It's just something I can do. And it's through symbol. Sometimes you do hear voices, but you will get yes, no answers. And every time I would ask, and you ask in your head, because you don't say, you have to say anything out loud, something would immediately happen and say, yes, keep pursuing this. Right. And so, yeah, so something occurred to me. I noticed he was doing like this comedy stuff. I'm like, what if I do something to where he'll just remember who I am? So if somehow my sister could get involved, who lives near him, then maybe if he did a convention or something, like I could stand up and he would know who I was, right? And well, I said I wasn't going to talk at all. Did I even go 2 minutes without talking? I will do this. But this is a good story, and it explains my Dave connection. And I am sponsored, by Amazon and other brands where I receive stuff for free. I've been doing this for 7 years. It got pretty dull reviewing like tie, blue button-down shirt, and you do that for 2 years, even just 2 years out of the 7, socks. And so I started going, I'm going to start ordering wild stuff. Why not? So I started ordering like dashikis, which, by the way, I sent David dashiki. He never wore it because it was after when he started to get like kind of depressed and stuff. But he has a brand new dashiki. Imagine that. Elf King jacket was actually better than that, but I did send him a purple dashiki. It's probably still in the wrapper. So I was using a psychological sort of mnemonic technique where I wanted to send him things that were so ridiculous because I have access to it. I'm not some rich person. I got just thousands of dollars worth of funny stuff I can send him. And how would I started thinking like how could someone forget someone that sends them a Prince jacket, a sparkly Prince jacket? Even if you want to forget this person, it's not happening, you know. So it worked, you know. And then the funny thing was, I never expected him to wearing that stuff. And then one day I watched a show, and he's got a slide up that says 7 geometry, and so he's playing around, you know. And so that then led, and I understand what this was about now. It wasn't about meeting Dave. Okay, that's he psychologically I don't think was ready for that. This thing that I can do is actually proof of his soul. You can instantaneously show that we live in a soul container. It's amazing, you know. And I thought with his work that would validate his life's work, and he would be able to handle the mental load of that. Because there was a time period on the show where he was talking about wild stuff, like the pajama episode. I'm like, you know what? He can handle this, you know. So, but that wasn't it. You know, it was also to help propagate his fans, sending him gifts too. And I'm not at all responsible for that. Remember, I was led to this. You know, these are not my ideas. I was led in this direction. You know, and so in the end, I think what it did was it helped strengthen his acknowledgement that his fan base really feels like a family, you know, and there's a particular connection there. And I saw that genuine compassion, and I just think he needed it, you know. And I'm telling you, and there was a series of letters that I sent him, and I'll get off the Dave topic here in a second, but there's a series of letters that I sent him where I was receiving certain psychic notions. Like I do medium work, but I receive psychic stuff all the time. I don't ask for it. And in the last letter, I sent this to a message to Jude. It says there's an extreme sense of urgency, you know, and I even offered to buy a prepaid cell phone, okay, and send him the prepaid cell phone, all right, because I figured he'd be really paranoid about, you know, like, you know, just keeping his privacy, you know. And so I was like, you know, I'll send you a prepaid cell phone, and you can just call me from that. You know, I have no idea where you're at. And I felt like if I actually talked to him too, it would strengthen that connection from the active location here, which I spent a lot of my time here. So, and but also what it did was it linked people up. You know, there's a couple other people from the show to reach out, and anybody who's on the McCallick path, you know, one person, you know, who turns on to waking up, that could then turn into hundreds of people, you know. And I really believe in this. I've seen endless signs of this type of connection where, like I've seen you, Philip White, I've seen you like all 4 times that I've done a live stream. You've tuned in for, I don't know how long, but I do appreciate that. And that's proving what Dave talked about that non-locality. And in his work, his constant references to people being drawn together. And in relation to that wanderer material, I remember when I was driving home, I had read that material at work. And when I was driving home in the morning, like a Jeep pulled out in front of me. And it had one of those tire things on it that said, like, wanderer, aren't we all? And this was early on. This is when the synchronicities started rolling and rolling and rolling, which then leads up to actual phenomenon. But it's not entertainment. That's part of the lesson. You have to just take it when it comes. You can't expect something like super 3D to happen. You know, when you least expect it, something will like appear. I'm not saying that'll happen with everybody, but that's how it was with me. But let's see here. So I just want to read, and I'm going to be quiet and do what I originally wanted to do, which is kind of just like take questions about Yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate this. I'm like 42 and I've never done a live stream. I don't even know how to set this up. And the thing is too, like I have it in me to create a massive fan base, but I'm not doing it because I'm trying to do something different here. I'm doing something where you get one or two people uh, coming through the aether, literally, and just it just I don't know, no tags, no theatrical picture. Uh, like before a stream begins, there'll be some AI generated picture of and something else. I'm not going to get critical at all, but I do have to mention something. I do not agree with people um, placing Dave's name on like their videos so that they know that they're going to immediately get that clickbait. And then like, I don't know, you've not, there's no Dave Wilcox name attached to any of my videos other than maybe like in the description part, not in like the tag area. Cause that tag is going to immediately draw a lot of white noise, you know, but I am thinking about trying to find a way to extend the hospice and the volunteer work in this kind of format where I could just sit here and talk to people, because there's no like, and I could do other things too. Like those other videos have like different types of meditations. There's like a sound bowl. There's a synthesizer. There's regular meditation. I've done other ones that have keyboards. And it's that idea of not actually needing language. You alter that linguistic element, and just having sounds is how you want your mind to be calibrated in relation to the way the pyramids were set up in sacred areas. Because the way those are set up, even just the doorways, if you read Freddie Silva's material, it suggests meditation based on vibration and tones. And how do you think the Ben was moved on the pyramid? This is through focusing on tones and series of words and a group of people to get that stuff, to access that. So I might do something like that, where I offer there's nothing wrong with guided meditations, but there's many different ways to get your mind calibrated to where you can receive proper ascension abilities. And it's much easier done when you pull back out of the baggage that we have going on now. There's so much chaos going on everywhere. Like I can't even like tune into the news at this point. Yeah, I'll have to I'll check that out. I'm not familiar with who that is, but because you recommended it, I'm sure that I'll definitely check that out. And yeah, let's see. I'm gonna switch. You know what? I do want to read this real quick. Let me see here. Yeah, and so Steiner's talking about different types of modern variation. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out, man. I've got plenty of free time. Yeah, so here, this is kind of related. In the whole situation and condition of the times, and he's talking about in 1200 CE, Okay, so and the whole situation and condition of the times was such that very often it looked as though someone who was searching and striving in this way found their teacher almost by chance. And it says, in those days, you could not find your teacher by means of books. It could only come about in an entirely personal way. But although it might look from without like a chance happening, in reality, deep connections of destiny were at work in the event. And I wrote that at the top of the page too. I always write all over my books. And he's talking about being drawn to certain spaces, you know. This can be locations, you know, like I found out after all this was going on that I mapped out where my father lived, which was in relation to those three videos that I put out, equaled like 7 hours the other day, and where I moved and where I'd lived before. And just like you're drawn to certain teachers, you may find out later on in life that your parents chose the house that you're living in for reasons that were beyond them, just because of the location where it was at. It might have been on a telluric, uh, um, male female current line, you know. And this is what he's talking about. Like he's talking about teachers, people gravitating naturally towards their path, and this was written. This was from 1924. Yeah, early 1924. They use that term neophyte. I mean, I'm going to try to replace that with student. So it says the student spoke to the teacher and told him of his earnest desire to be able to see into the spiritual world. But it seemed to him as though human nature, as it was in that period, it was somewhere around the 12th century, did not allow him to penetrate into spiritual worlds. Nevertheless, he said, I cannot but feel that in nature we have something that is the work, the creation of divine, spiritual beings. When we look at what the objects are in their deeper meaning, we then observe how the process of nature take their course. We are bound to recognize that behind these creations stand the workings of the divine, spiritual beings. You know what's really funny? I don't talk about this often, but I'm just going to go ahead and say this because I've never mentioned this. One of the things I was led to do when I realized that I had these extended abilities was to create certain devices where you could alter cameras and capture things. And when I started reading Steiner, I came across this part where he talks about like nature spirits and like like entities that live in like metals and things like that. And I'm honest with you, I was like, man, he kind of lost me here. You know, I mean, this is early on. I just started reading Steiner, and then after I had realized I had this altered camera, which I barely ever use. There's actually a series of cameras. I also found out that you can go to a certain spot within a hotspot, because hotspots, there's different areas that are good for different things. And there's also always a little scary area too, which you can also find out are actually guardians. It's very complex. But oh yeah, so I had went to this one location that I'd found out had a particular significance. And I just had this idea to take a picture, and clear as day, this like entity showed up that looked like a gnome type fairy type. I don't know how else to describe it. It was clear as day, and it didn't disappear, because sometimes, I found out briefly 15 years ago that this kind of stuff would just appear in photos that I would take, and then they would just black out and disappear. I was not polarizing correctly back then. But moving forward to this situation, I just started laughing because I was like, oh my God, this is real. Like, these things are actually real. And I've seen, and then, after that, I've seen it many times. It's pretty funny and it's pretty cool too. And just to go back to Dave's situation real quick, when he was having all of his issues with weather related issues, I would send them a letter saying, hey, look, these are actually, you can control this, especially if it's like um, pipes freezing or things like that. You know, hey, it's real. Let's see here. Okay, some I did. I'm gonna have to get quiet now. Go into quiet mode. I just yap and yap and yap.
calmness, clearing the mind waves, calming mind. To receive teachings, that is the key. Going long periods of time without responding to a bell. Very simple, yet hard to apply until you get the hang of it. This is your right. I respond to this in a way that's heightened somehow, because you'll find out what you respond to. And the Zurite's actually under the malachite coating, and malachite copper. So if you respond to copper, a lot of people that gravitate towards this spot respond to copper-based stone. This is a special one because if all this was removed, it would be this shiny blue crystal. So the visual, so when I went to choose this, it had nothing to do with the visual element. I mean, I could have went over someplace else and got something that was sparkly, and it's not about what it looks like, it's about what it gives off. You can use this stuff to clear up your mind waves. Page 976. stray had been accustomed to search out the real interests that lay behind spoken ones and to think of ways to reconcile them. Pugnacks. All right, man. Thanks for talking. I'm trying to do a sort of like discipline thing where I don't. I'm gonna see if I can actually not talk unless someone makes me talk. I'm always playing uh, games with myself like that to try to strengthen um, my attention, because when you're in hospice work, a lot of the times I found out early on I was talking too much, and just being there was way more effective. And if you believe in non-locality, um, I mean, I can prove non-locality is real, but the same thing can happen in a space like this, I think, too, where like if I just listen and wait, um, there may be some kind of benefit. Yeah, so this Thomas Pynchon, normally I don't go, ever since I've been on my spiritual path, normally I wouldn't read material that contain graphicness. Like there's Gravity's Rainbow was the first one I read, and it's just about excess. And normally I wouldn't. If this guy's like a genius, you know. I mean, he reminds me of Nabokov, where like when I'm done reading the book, I've understood maybe 80% of it, and what I don't understand actually makes it that much better, because then I can read it again after I do some research. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is my second book by him. I like big books, you know. This is like 1,000-page book, and it's really funny. You know, it's completely different from Gravity's Rainbow, and they're really challenging. I mean, there's some authors that are all prosy, you know, and but they're not really that good. You know, so I didn't even like the first 300 pages of Gravity's Rainbow, and then it just got me, and I got it, and then I moved right on to this masterpiece, which I'm almost done with, in the 900s. Okay, yeah, I do recognize that now. Yeah, and the company that makes um, this thing here, this is like a Templar symbol on this. What's the name of this company? It's like AWNL, or they make a lot of stuff with that type of stone in it, to the point where they actually have like, they obtain some meteorites, and it's really expensive, and they chunk off pieces of the meteorite and they sell it, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna look that up. Huh. Yeah. Um, yeah, so that's you know, like the formation of crystals in general is a strange phenomenon. And Rupert Sheldrake, um, in his book Morphic Resonance, I don't. There's different versions. It's not even called morphic resonance in the UK, I don't think. But towards the end of the book, I know it's in an updated version, so the one you can buy, he talks about crystals in general and how the randomness of them, and how you can never actually replicate the same. I mean, he's going to say it in the most academic way around, so he avoids supernatural terminology. But there's a great chapter on how certain stones and crystals are like a representation of something that lives in multiple dimensions. Um, yeah, no, I have to study up on that. I try not to talk about. I don't use chatbots. I don't know if you're familiar with some of my talks. I don't. I would look things up real quick, but before I answer something, I want to make sure I know it, and I've traced my sources back. You know, so that's why I like to read books. But yeah, this is a really interesting. I'm gonna look at this stuff. Wow, that's cool. Bismuth. That's really easy to remember too. I don't even have to write that down, because the mnemonic Q is I think a peptobismuth. So there's no way I'm gonna forget that. And I know what a moldavite. is. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that thing about the asteroid because I really want to get one of those bracelets that have that asteroid in it from this company that did not this one, but this one down here. This is a pretty good company. This sells for like $300, and I was able to get it for free. There's some tax liability, but and this one here, normally I wouldn't wear something that looks traditionally feminine like this, but this is a feminine bracelet because it was my stepmother's. She actually passed away uh, with this on, and some people might think that's weird. You know, you get it back, it's in a plastic bag, but I think that's great. You know, I mean, I feel her connection uh, while wearing this in a heightened way. And the other day, I'd forgot this to wear this for the first time in like 2 years. It's something that didn't feel right. I accidentally left it on because I leave this around a rose quartz that I have because that's like her quartz. That was like her stone, you know. And I had taken it off to do a video, and I had left it somewhere, and I just left the house without it, and I felt really strange without this thing on, you know. Yeah, yeah, it is, you know, and it's I don't even know if you can see. It is really charged, and there's something really interesting that happens. It'll just light up blue and purple, and these are little spheres, and it almost looks like that sphere that I saw in my one of my first extreme moments, supernatural phenomenon that I had at this location. And yeah, like right now, if you hold it a certain way, a little blue dot, and that might be common for all quartz bracelets. I don't know, but there's a special type of illumination on this one. And something too, you can also take it off. You know, if you're in an area that has, I'm always playing around with light, and you look through it, again, it might seem weird, and you hold it up to a certain light, you can see through, you can see things happen in the center. Really? That's that's great because there's no purple light here. So if you saw purple color coming from that, and that's an interesting topic because earlier I had an urge to take a picture of some John Coltrane records next to the Coltrane tattoo because that's like a spiritual thing. And when I took a picture of the cover of A Love Supreme, this purplish blue light appeared on the face, but it was explainable because my fish tank, I had turned it down to purple light. I have beta fish, and they enjoy they don't like bright lights, so I only keep that on for like 3 hours, and I switch it over to purple. But that had reflected off of the plastic from the record sleeve, and so it made this really cool natural effect. But that was explainable. So if you saw, yeah, so if you saw purple in here, um, okay, yeah, that's really cool because like it never is purple; it's usually blue, and purple is my stepmother's color. So yeah, this is another example right here of how playful guides are. So the more you embrace the fact that you're talking to someone or just looking up at someone who's in an active area who's also active, that's how the consciousness grid works. You're not going to be able to. Um, a lot of people aren't going to be able to understand this. You almost have to like stumble into it. You know, just like I stumbled into Dave's work. Um, and so by saying purple, there's no way you would have really known that unless you, I mean, I think I've talked to, there's no way you would have known the significance of that color. And who knows, maybe, well, no, I'm not gonna go that far and get too weird, but so yeah, I mean, when you start connecting with people that have gone through certain experiences, this could be NDEs as well, you'll start seeing things differently. And you know, it was amazing to be able to talk to Raymond Moody the other night. Um, I think they misunderstood what I was saying. Like I had missed the Zoom uh, deadline or something, and I had emailed Raymond Moody's team for a link, and I think they thought I was trying to get in for free or something, and I was just trying to see if I could still get into the meetings. They sent me like this link where I didn't even have to pay, and that wasn't the point. And I had a great session, and then I wanted to get the Zoom meeting so I could like have that. You know, I mean, I'm talking to Raymond Moody, you know, and I got to hear him talk for 2 hours. And they never responded to me, so I'm like, I wonder if they. I don't know. That was kind of. But so there was things in his meeting as well that was synchronistic, you know, and I started to kind of tell him my story a little bit, and it was actually about my stepmother and a certain phenomenon that I saw before she passed. And he seemed really interested. Like you can tell when people are interested when they kind of hear the same story and over. And he was also one of the people I was led to his material. It was more like six authors, 6 or 7, and Dave was one of them. And I could tell that in his book Paranormal, he talks about how there's like this missing link to all of his work. And what I've been led to be able to do, which is show proof of the soul instantaneously, non-locally, is like the missing link to someone like his life's work. And I also felt that Dave would benefit from that. So I was trying to reach out to certain people like that where I could show them the missing puzzle piece of their work, show them. This isn't sending someone, a manuscript. This is showing them something, right? I can't talk. I mean, there's only so much I can talk about here. It's become dangerous. But so even just entering into a space where this was 2 nights ago. It was on the 16th, where I'm talking to to this guy who's responsible for coining the term near-death experience, and not just coining it, but the white light, like a life review, things like this. And he brought up a really good point too, where he says that because of it, I think this began in 1974, because of his life's work becoming ingrained globally in the consciousness of people, when people have near-death experiences, when they get to that realm, when they're standing there having a life review, when there's a guide, a presence next to them, it's not always the same, but that's kind of the standard. They are able to already know what's happening. And I thought that was I never actually thought about that. And he was talking about that in this 2-hour Zoom meeting. But when this goes back to kind of the topic that we've been talking about. Anytime that I started talking, I'm trying not to talk. That's failing miserably. But no, I want to. I'm just joking. I want to talk to you guys, but I'm trying not to veer off. But this is connected. So I then started hearing Raymond Moody talk about things in a way that was answering questions beyond what I even asked him. He started talking about time in general, and I compared this to his work with mirror gazing and psychomantiums, which I don't talk about that much because it's kind of sensitive. It's where you set up mirrors and you engage in a modern form of scrying, which is mirror gazing. You can look that up, And I actually turned my bedroom into a psychomantium. And this is just the weird things that happen when you're engaging in a mystery student path. And so I thanked him in the Zoom meeting for that. And I also said, I was like, Raymond, when you're using the psychomantium and it starts to work, meaning like things start coming through the mirrors, what have you, um, there's a similar time removal consciousness shift that happens when you see like light phenomenon in a hotspot. Uh, and I asked him about that feeling. Like, do you get this feeling of time removal where you get like you might forget what happened before and after, and his answer was like amazing. Like, that's why I want to watch the Zoom meeting replay, because he started talking about time in general. It's one of those things when he was done saying, I was like, whoa, whoa, man. So again, it's that, and I saw something in him during that meeting. Like I could tell that he was ready to hear more of my story. And he goes, "Thank you for sharing that." And it was genuine. You can tell when people are kind of going through the motions. So what I'm going to do now with that is I'm actually going to pay, because he's retired, semi-retired, even though he has a new book called Swan Song coming out. I'm going to do that call. I think he charges like $300 to talk to him for an hour. And I'm going to say, hey, I got a story that you've never heard before. And you can't make up something like this. And if you could send someone my way, or I can meet up with maybe a university professor or someone that can remain confidential. I can show them, or they can show you. I can come out to you, what have you. But I do want to talk to him for an hour, and I know that it'll be an easy conversation, very easy to talk to. And I feel confident I have something that he hasn't heard before. You know, where am I going with this? I'm saying that these connections, will just come almost kind of stumble right into your pathway. Like I just was given access to this meeting that had already been closed out for a week. I'd missed the deadline. And not only did he take the question, but he allowed for a lengthy question to where you could actually talk a little bit before it and sort of compliment him or what have you. It just worked out perfectly. So, be right back. I gotta use the restroom here and drink a lot of water and coffee. Oh, okay, that's a good question. All right. Wow. Ding, ding, ding. You win. I'm going to actually unplug the the computer and go to a different location for this one. Let's see here. Oh, don't tell me the phone's dead. Oh, whatever. That was a great question. Yeah, I can't talk about where I'm at, but I mean, it's not that hard to